We're off. The first one. Anyway, I wanted to say thanks for coming, man. That's awesome. When I was hitting this up last night, this whole issue of getting the technology to work stressed me out more than fuck everyone else. What Joe Rogan's got the Jamie or whoever his buddy is, and then you see all these young guys like my son and everything, they're just totally switched on. I'm like, this is gonna be a fucking disaster right out of the gate.
Glad you're doing it.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the choice of that song because I think it fits into what Old Guard Athletics is all about. So here we are, first episode, and it's taken, I was going through this in my head last night, it's taken decades of building to get here and years of discussion to organize it. So anyway,
at least 2 with me. I feel like it's been a couple of years, right? 3 of us.
I was trying to think, it's got to be, you and I talked about it probably first, which would be, I don't know how many years ago. You know, it's probably 3, 4, 5 maybe even.
Yeah.
And so, like, in terms of discussion, but then it's funny, right? The discussion on top of what we've been doing kind of leads to this. So I think it all kind of flows naturally. So just like we were talking about, how do we kind of kick this off for ourselves and then for people that might even be interested in it? Yeah, just like Old Guard Athletics. I mean, what does it even stand for? Like, why are we sitting here? Who cares about guys that are in their, well,
50s.
I was going to say 50s. You're not
I'm
yet.
just about.
Pretty
right?
close.
But who really cares about what we have to say? And I guess when I thought about it, it's because we've got a lifetime, and I'm talking decades, where we've earned the right to have the conversation. Whether people like it, that's a different part. But I was going through this when it first came up that, you know, they talk about the expert, 10,000 hours, you're an expert. So I did the math. The way that we go about our approach to athletics, leading to an average maybe 2 hours a day on average every day. Like, so in your case, you go and ride, and some days it's many hours, and some days in your gym for an hour. So let's say 2.5 hours a day, 365. In 10 years, we get 10,000 hours. So we're an expert after 10 years. We've been doing this for 3+ decades. So that technically means that we are 3 times the definition of an expert. So I think it gives us some credibility because of the time. I think that's one of the biggest factors is the duration that we've been doing this for so long. And there's others that we'll talk about that are coming up behind us, but I think that's kind of a cool reference point. And I know you talked about, it's really important when we get into this that it's not just about results.
Right.
I mean, you that's a different podcast conversation. You're talking to the guy that's got the highest batting average or the winning percentage or something, right? I think in our case, we're the guys that have just somehow showed up every fucking day.
Well, and even though we've been doing this for multiple decades, I don't think we've got it figured out yet either. Still learning.
About myself, I'm still learning. And it's the thing that I think is the most interesting one is the continuation of whatever we decide to do each day that makes us feel that we've achieved something physically, athletically. We keep doing it despite the carrot. In a lot of cases, some carrots, like we create carrots for ourselves, and we talked about that with some of the other guys who create a carrot. They need to have a fight coming up, they need to have a show, they need to have a sport. But you talk to a 20-year-old in the gym who's playing football, and why are you lifting? Why are you grinding it out? Well, I got to play football. I got to be fit for football. But when the football's done and that kid's still in the gym, what are you doing it for? He goes, I just always done it. I'm going to keep doing it. Those are the guys. Now they don't have respect for the other guys, or the guys that are in the gym. That's what I'm just in the gym because I like being in the gym. I like the grind, or I like picking up my bike. What are you going to do? Am I going to race? Well, I might do some fun things like riding in a circle for 3 hours or whatever. But it's not to achieve anything anymore as far as like proving anything to anyone else. It's just I like doing that stuff.
So just on this point, because people say, okay, well, there's these 4 semi-old guys, not bad looking though. Particularly this one. This one looks the same as us, and he's 10 years older in a way. But I was telling someone last night, I said, I got John Murphy in this conversation. The guy looks exactly like he did when I was a teenager at Ironworks. Like, it's just like cryogenics in living form or something. I don't get it. But so perhaps one of the things that's helpful, aside from the fact we've been doing this a while, is just, I thought if you could, we'll go defer to age. What is the most unique thing that you can think of that people might not know in terms of your passion for a lifetime of athletics, and whether it's organized or just like Jay was saying, something every day, just something, and it could be even something tangential to it, right? Maybe you ballet dancer. I don't think so, but it could have been. Nothing wrong with it. But just something that people would say, okay, that is something that maybe you never said to someone before. But in terms of your passion for a lifetime of athletics.
I remember going with my dad down to the Bay to buy some weights in grade 8, and I've trained ever since then. And, you know, the reason I'm here is I love this stuff, and I love talking about it, and I like working out, and, you know, I want to learn more. And, you know, sitting with you guys, I learn more stuff, and I think we have a wealth of experience that we can offer to people, and they can benefit from it. Because when I started, there was nothing. There was zero.
Would you have the Charles Atlas ad in the magazine? Was that it?
And then Muscle and Fitness, and then Powerlifting USA, which was really groundbreaking. But you had to find all that stuff yourself. There was no internet. You know, there was no cycling of training, you know, deloading. There was none of it. We just pounded hard.
You had no reference. There was no physical reference point locally, or like, it was so tough back then, right?
No. Yeah, you know, I remember filling out a paper advertisement for Franco Columbo's deadlift workout. I wish I still had it.
Right?
Paid $5 for this cardboard or this paper magazine, which was helpful, but you know, there was nothing.
Okay, so that gives us the time capsule part of this, where back then, and then we'll go jump to the youngest one. What like something that's just, I know some of the things that I was surprised when we started talking about your background, but there's some really cool stuff that you've had a passion for.
Well, the things I've had a passion for, I think, are secondary to the way I think all of us approach things, and as I guess something that people would know about me maybe is that I know I deserve a spot at this table because of how annoying I am when I'm going through the learning process, which I am with cycling. And I know we've already derailed a couple of conversations because he's got much more experience with cycling than I am, and we're trying to have a conversation about getting this podcast started, and we started talking about, what bike do you have, because I want to absorb everything, and whether it was martial arts was kind of my first thing, martial arts led to the weightlifting. I would go I knew the guys to look up to and who to ask the questions, and who were the achievers, the competitors, and no disrespect to the teachers, but it wasn't always them, and I would go grind out every drop of information from everybody to the point of where they're like, I don't know, this new guy's, I don't know if he's going to be very fun to be around. and then eventually I paid my dues and I earned a place in the sport usually. But I think that's something like my joy in sport is always the learning process. And as I get better at it, and there's less, not that we can't always learn, but the curve starts plateauing a little bit, and then often that's when I've moved on to something new.
Somebody was like Kobe Bryant or whatever, but just that thing, like that insatiable desire to just suck every ounce of knowledge out. Like for some people that's extremely annoying, but for someone like you, it'd just be
was skydiving and long. I remember on my and the nonstop, like when I was going through skydiving, when I was learning skydiving, I was always looking at the clouds and looking at the wind and looking at the sky. Like I could be at a wedding and I'm like, this wind right now, I'd land this direction if I had to like jump into this, or like on my honeymoon, I'm like in a bus going through Switzerland with my wife, and she's having a little nap in the bus as we're driving, and I was into long distance shooting, and I was looking at that mountaintop's probably about 1,000 yards, and I know what I had to dial to hit, a 10-inch target at 1,000 yards. Right? I just always thinking about that when it sticks in my brain.
No, but that's it. You can't turn it off, right?
Did you capture a lot of these learnings? So when you picked out someone at the gym or whatever that was this knowledge expert, how did you seek them out? Were you intimidated? And then do you have like journals and journals?
I didn't document it. I just did. I tried to. I wish I had. I wasn't that organized. I had more passion than brains, maybe. But I don't know. I don't know how I picked the people out. And I wasn't intimidated, and I think that was the annoying part.
Do you write stuff down a lot? Like, do you have
I do now. Or track.
Yeah, I don't.
I track stuff, and I think I don't know. I think a lot of what appeals to people is like progress and the ability to track. We used to use how many like logs do you have from back in the day, and do you still have them, or do you guys the paper ones? But now apps make it easier in our smartwatches to say, oh, my, use RPE to determine how hard that workout felt. We can also look at our all these metrics. So that'll be a separate discussion.
Yeah.
But, I didn't track on paper as much as I should have, and I'm thankful for the apps to track. I have an app on my phone to track every workout I've had in the last 6 years. I can tell you 5 years ago what I did.
If you mentioned the brand, be like Oprah's book club, just a little.
Well, it's the Strong app that I'm not even sure they still make, but it still charges me for it. There's not that much support, but it's awesome. It's awesome, and it works perfectly for me. I've actually tried other ones. It's just called Strong, and it's got a dumbbell on it through the App Store.
You're probably the only user left.
I might be. Well, I got one other guy, a friend of mine, Kevin Hagedis. He also uses it, so I know there's two of us out there. But those things I think are a huge benefit, and I think also keep us moving forward with it too, as you look and see the progress.
So, you know, again, I know a bit about your background, but pick something that's just unique to you that people don't know, maybe never told someone.
Well, I grew up on a farm, and that's where my passion for athletics really came about. And I don't even know if I'd figured it out, because you're looking after cattle, you're shoveling wheat, you're doing whatever, and this is like true strength. And I just found that I really enjoyed it, and I was playing hockey as a young kid at the time on the farm, shoveling off the dugout to go skate for 3 hours, and I had a York dumbbell set and a couple weights in the basement, and bought some book, I don't know, maybe from the library, or got a book from the library, and got into plyometrics. And I was like, wow, I'm actually seeing some results from this. And it just became this daily habit, and trying to do a little bit better today than what I did yesterday type of thing. And you know, looking back, you know, did we have ADHD? Probably. And this was a way for me to, you know, burn off some energy,
of course,
and also to keep my head clear. I find, and this has transitioned into my adult life, where if I don't have a workout or do some sort of exercise, I don't have mental clarity. I don't feel like I'm prepared for the day, or I just become a bit of an a-hole because I'm grumpy because I haven't done anything.
I mean, I think some people argue that maybe for people like us, as this gets further discussed, like, say, oh, okay, scientific. I mean, you're kind of our science guy. That's what I'm counting on in this conversation. But like, seriously, no pressure. No pressure. But I think, like, from a definition, we might follow borderline on what do you call it, addiction or
OCD.
Well, no,
obsessive,
but like, some people have vices in a different thing. And in our vice, if you want to call it that, I struggle to think this is a vice, right?
No,
but
I 100% think it's an addiction.
I think it's a vice, and I'll tell you,
addiction.
Yeah, but is it addiction? Is it a negative always, or can it be a positive?
It can be positive within reason. You control it.
Is it, like we spoke before you turned the microphone on, is it affecting other parts of our life negatively?
That's
Well, I mean, this is good. We're going to have this conversation
right.
about, because I think for the core of us, it is so defining that and because it's, I think, statistically unique, we do impact a lot of people because we're walking around different than others. Mm-hmm. And then I think that's part of the reason that we're talking about it, is because I felt, maybe a segue to me, but I felt really weird for decades, thinking I was the only one living like this. And then I kind of ran into you a bit in the later years, and I saw you over the years. Like I said to you last night, I used to think you were kind of this way, but I couldn't frame it when I saw you doing like the triathlon and then your dead powerlifting and all this, right? And you were changing. And then I ran into you, and I always saw you around town, and I thought you were just this jacked up, you know, kind of mini Hulk guy that beat people up at his bar or something. You know, like, just didn't mess with Beavis. But then I find out that you got all these amazing passions for different elements of athletics.
Renaissance man.
Yeah, well, like, you know, but in a weird way, right? So
this is a therapy group for. We've figured out that there's other people out there.
Like us. But so that's why when the podcast, if someone tries to find it, it says it's opening the echo chamber. I mean, I can't think of it any other way than like a cathartic piece for me to be around you guys, so that I can learn from you. We talk about that, and then also is to converse in a way that others that might also think, like we talked about the guy at the gym. We don't name him yet, but hopefully he'll show up. But he's in his late 30s, and he thought he was the weirdo, and he's like, Jesus, man, like there's others, So
and I'll tell you, when I was younger, I never cared. I never thought about other people thinking about me, and because I'm a short, weaselly little guy, and but that never got into my brain ever. Always first on the list was working out, and I think you guys are the same way. There's what's my list of priorities? Workout's the first thing, and so and I think Adam will speak to that's all he thinks about.
Yeah, just in some form of he did. I don't know if you guys knew this, but he just did his the Frank Dunn triathlon. So this guy he's like you, eh? He's a real athlete across everything, and so he trains but he just said, no, I want to do this, and I think he's got plans to do something else, and I just think it's super cool because we're finding out that there's others exist like this. It's a global, local community. Like I don't think this is cross culture. Like I
totally
100%. When I was overseas, I ran into people like this. Again, statistically, it's a minority, but the other part is just to frame the whole concept of this. And there's the podcast, but a lifetime of athletic pursuit is what we're all about. And then I think there's an earned component. I think we talk about the learning, and then this other element is the sharing part. And we talk about being dads with sons. I haven't done very well with the sharing.
And daughters. My daughter's a little, she's a grinder in her own way.
Yeah,
too.
so you kind of got, right? But like I think the father-son dynamic is tough, and I grew up with a non-sharing approach. I was more of a lecturing.
Maybe if we become like famous podcasters, my kids will actually listen to me now.
You're cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like,
We are
that's
missing
my dad now, actually.
We are missing some things we may not know about you, Mr. Jon Somers. Like,
well, I mean, I think elements of everything you guys talked about. I was thinking about this last. I cannot recall a day that I didn't want to be athletic, and I used to get in trouble because I wouldn't come home for dinner, because I was looking for the next pickup game. I just to your point, it didn't. It seemed like everyone was doing it back then, so perhaps that's why you felt statistically in the norm. And then as years gone by, that just stayed with me, and everything else dropped off. And so I've been fascinated by like my own psychological addiction or drive around it, and then also I have a deep fascination with people like yourselves who from your own reasons pursue this. And then I also get really attracted to people that we talked about this, that they isolate where they want to be the pioneer, like the groundbreak, mold breaker in athletics for whatever it is. It could be a coach or whatever. I'm just fascinated by the psychology that goes into the confidence to be that pioneer, where they're literally going to be the one where everyone's like, Jesus, we never saw that before. And this is a totally new direction for athletics, whatever that is.
And I'm not even sure they're thinking that they're a pioneer. They're just
doing
following what their gut says.
Yeah,
to do.
I wonder what would happen.
Yeah, I'm gonna try this out.
Yeah.
Which, Mike, like, where was the farm you grew up on?
Rollo, so just south of Regina.
Yeah. So, and what got you onto the weights and plyometrics? Like, anybody else around there was doing that stuff?
No, not at all. My cousin a little bit, but I was a skinny kid, and I was like, I don't want to be this skinny kid. And I ate a ton, and it was all stuff grown on the farm pretty much. But I thought it might help me a little bit in sports, and if I could have some arms while doing that, and maybe some bigger legs.
Good for the girls.
Great.
Yeah, right.
So that was all intrinsic. It wasn't like you had a gym to go to.
Oh,
there was somebody like your uncle. Like,
there was no gym even at the school that I went to. So there was 100 kids in kindergarten to grade 12.
Jesus.
10 in my graduating class, 5 boys, 5 girls, so made grad dates pretty easy. But no gym other than the rink in town and playing ball in the summer. That was it.
Sorry, one last thing, because we come from a certain era. I'm the oldest, but anybody here not remember shoveling off the rink
Oh yeah,
That's why we played shitty.
right?
We had the double.
Yeah.
Well, and it was
Skate
basically
yeah,
the
yeah,
losing
yeah.
team that had to scrape the ice between periods.
Yeah.
And at the end of the game, so it was a big incentive to win the game.
Yeah, rinks are disappearing, outdoor rinks, and the art of shoveling them before you play. Anyways, this is something to talk about later. It's just something you did because I want to play.
Yeah.
And this is where I think when people come across this conversation, like, oh, they're talking organized sport, amateur sport. So no, athletic, exactly. You're talking about athletics in life, like that shoveling together, the losing side, like these are athletic activities that just bled into everything around.
To the point that you make this, you called this the athletic pursuit,
Yeah.
and not necessarily achievement.
Yeah.
Is a very important distinction.
Yeah.
Because shoveling the rink, like I don't know who shoveled snow yesterday. Like now, my wife and I went out, and my son, we shoveled, and I wasn't in competition with either of them. They certainly hold their own. I'm impressed with both of them, but I was in competition with myself who could shovel. Like I was just looking at going, I need to shovel. Like it's a competition. I have to go. Like this wasn't a leisurely, I'll make sure the snow, or it's just a job that needs to be done. I'm like, this needs to be done.
And I'm going to crush it.
Yeah, and I was checking my heart rate, which is like, probably doesn't help if this is an addiction or a compulsion or whatever. But yeah, and then you stand back and kind of look at the work and go, okay, I hope it snows again. And it did.
But this trade of yours, right? Was it 2 years ago when we were you were going on about the same thing? You were digging the hole in the back, the trench.
So the guy backhoe.
He doesn't know the story. This is a classic.
Well, we had a well dug out at our acreage, and it's very sandy soil, so it was actually quite easy to dig in. But the guy that I hired to use the backhoe was a friend's dad, and he just said, "Listen, I'm 80 years old. I'm worried about hitting." It's 12 feet between the well and the house, and he said, "I'm worried about hitting your house." And I kind of said, "Well, I guess I'll just have to do it by hand." And he said, "You can't do that." Out came the shovel, and so I dug a 9-foot trench, deep by 12 feet, and
Like it's not. It's
and I
way.
ran the water
That's
line
not safe at all.
No, it was actually
No.
not. But I was safer about it than it sounded. I just dig the whole thing. I did it and I had to lay the pipe as I went. But it was a fair bit of work. But you can get a lot done with a shovel.
Likely in the pipe.
Especially if you're angry at the earth, and you're angry at the shovel, and you're angry at the guy who said you can't do it.
9 feet is almost twice your height.
Yeah. What are you saying?
Oh, okay. So I launched that because it's a segue. It's a segue about our stature in a way, right? It's funny.
Except for Mike.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
This is officially, how tall are you?
5'9".
Really?
Well, he's towering over us.
You're a giant, man.
Yeah.
Huge.
I went for
With the right shoes on.
I went for a medical. And I just got crushed.
What do you-
5'6" and a half now. I'm just like, what is? I swore I told people it's 5'8". I would stretch it like 5'9". This is for years, eh? Anyway, the story about the bodybuilding thing, and then I had an insurance thing, and somewhere I thought I was like 5'7" and a bit, and I'm just like.
What's happening?
Little person status now. I mean, 5'6" and a half.
Like, have you
It's big.
shrunk, or you just thought you were taller when you looked?
I think it's
at
a bit of both. I think I was never 5'8". I was probably max 5'7" and a quarter. I stretched it to 5'7" and a half, and I've just shrunk. So we have towering 5'9".
Yeah,
I'm sub 5'7".
I say 5'6", but honestly, I don't quite hit 5'6".
So I'm taller than you.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know. I'm like 5 3/4. Yeah.
Yeah, you're as wide as your tall. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but man, it fit in a skydiving airplane really well. How tall are you?
How tall are you?
5'5".
5'5". Okay, so this is the segue into the other part of what this is all about, old guard athletics. So there's the underpinning of a lifetime of athletic pursuit, but like, why did the name old guard come up? And that was just like a subconscious thing. You hear the term OG and all that kind of stuff, and I think I'm also taking a little offense to the way that term is now looked down upon. Like, if I think in today's society, certain generation uses old guard, they kind of look at it as out to pasture, and it's not a positive. So then I happened to stumble across the definition I talked to you guys about, where in real terms, I mean, Napoleon, when he was in power, they had that fighting elite group for the 11, 15 years, which was called the Old Guard. So by definition, we fit a lot of that. Like in order to fit in, you had to have, in his world, it was 3 campaigns. We've got 3 decades of that. You had to have just ferocious kind of tendencies. And they talked about how the training was so intense that if you couldn't handle the ferociousness, that you just didn't fit. And I think we've got that from an appetite standpoint. And then you obviously approach it like from campaigns where you go out and you fight and then you come back and you recover. And when we do this, whether it's your different sports, skydiving, this, that, you know, these are all different campaigns. The funniest thing that someone brought to my attention when I showed them this in the build-up to us, he goes, "You guys don't even qualify for your own definition. You're not tall enough." Because back then, 5'8" was a tall height. So everybody had to be 5'8". Oh. So this person pointed out, you guys are already a fake group of guys because you don't even make the height.
Well, as we went around the table, is this a group of guys that have pursuing athletic achievement, or are we just a bunch of guys with little man syndrome?
Okay, but let's get into that. I will 100% put it on the table. I watched the Napoleon movie. I have those issues. I mean, I just, since day one, I knew I wasn't going to be 5'9" or what. I wasn't. So I was like, holy fuck, I'm stuck here. Like, I want to be an influence in athletics somehow. It's just not going to happen. Like, genetically, I got other people taller. Like, I'm biting ankles, and it was only in high school I finally found another person that was the same height as me in grade 9. Girls were always taller than me. I entered high school at 4'11".
Holy shit.
4'11", and I wanted to play football beyond anything. At 4'11", 110 pounds. And I was like the most horrific football player guy to be around, because like annoying, because I just wouldn't give up on the stuff, right?
Yeah.
But there's like, what is this guy doing? He's like way over the top. But there's something to be said about it where your stature, I think, if you have the other part of it, I don't know if they caused our pursuit, but I'm sure they're woven, because we talked about insecurity last night. So I'm curious, like, you talked about
100%. I've always been like conscious of my height, even though I'm the tallest guy at this table. You know, I work with a bunch of people that are 6'4", 6'3", and stand beside these people. You feel a little bit like I have to overcompensate for my height around them. Do this faster, do this better, be smarter, whatever. Yeah. And, you know, as I've gotten older, I've kind of got to the point where I'm like, who cares? I am who I am. This is what the big guy upstairs gave me, type of thing. And I'm going to make the best of it. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. And that's the maturity part, right? I mean, I think, but not just maturity, but I think, like, kind of goes back to this multi-decade pursuit of athletics. I know what you've achieved. So on a relative basis, you've done better than 99% of people in the stuff that you put your mind. Like I think. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's the same for the two of you guys. You've achieved a huge amount.
Yeah, for me, I was oblivious to how small I was. Like in grade school, high school, and oddly enough, I never got picked on, and it never really entered into my mind.
But I guarantee I know why you didn't get picked on.
But I always wanted to be the biggest, meaning, you know, most muscular and the strongest.
Yeah,
that was the thing.
Presence, right?
That was the thing in my brain, and I never. It's only kind of lately that I've come to realize, you know, I am a small guy relative to, relative to most guys I hang out with or just in the general crowd. But I was never conscious of it or worried about it.
Same. Yeah.
I never had little man syndrome, but I certainly wanted to be the strongest guy in the gym, and that drove me.
Same as I don't recall being too worried about being too short, but I have been aware of is my desire to be muscular, some subconscious. Trying to make up for it, but I just knew I started lifting when I was very young, but I was also involved in martial arts and in point fighting, like Karate Kid style, best of the best style fighting. Speed and having that height advantage were the two things, because we're not hitting each other, knock each other out. It was to get your hand or your foot as close. So I had a disadvantage with height, obviously, with my reach. So I knew I had to be faster, and I think at the time, even though the kind of lifting I was doing, but I was confused at being stronger meant being faster. But that's what my goal is. If I'm not going to be taller, I better be stronger. And then as I moved away into kickboxing or jiu-jitsu and stuff, where that strength complemented those sports a little more, I think. But I never really worried, other than paying attention to my height, other than I just knew I was at a disadvantage in point fighting, unless I got fast. And I thought getting fast meant getting strong, and obviously I learned later that wasn't the case.
So I think there's the common theme from all this is, because you said, I think you and I might have said we were maybe more aware of our height, but having met you when I met you, I only noticed that you exuded confidence, right? Like, and I think, like, the four of us have always we never really thought that we wouldn't be able to achieve whatever. So I think this whole thing is a big driving force of it. And then as you start to kind of rack up a bit of achievement, you just get more comfortable with it. So that's why it's interesting. We'll talk to other people that have genetic gifts. The guys that are 6'4", and then there's those. I'm always fascinated by those guys, because I think, what would I have done if I was 6'4"? Like, really? Like, I don't know. Like, what there's some paths that maybe you would have gone down that are different.
Yeah, potentially.
Right?
Maybe it would have been a limitation. Maybe you would have rested more and not pushed as hard.
I've seen lots of guys like that have
say,
it.
"Oh, I'm my height is." I don't think consciously you'd say my height is going to carry me, but they wouldn't have given you the drive that we had, because there's like, maybe I have to make up for my height in other ways.
Lots of guys have natural gifts, but no internal drive, no intrinsic, innate drive, and they don't go anywhere.
You can't coach or teach want.
Mm-hmm.
It's just in you.
Yeah,
And I think it's developed over the years. My desire and want to be a better version of myself every day.
Well, I guess that's a question I have, if you don't mind me changing the direction on it. Is does this athletic desire to be better translate into your personal and your work lives, John?
100%. Because when I do something athletic, I'm kind of like you. I try to redline myself physically, like at a central nervous system and mental level, because I think, like, wrapping your head around the pressure that you put yourself under willingly, I always think to myself, when I get away from that, I'm having a business or whatever, right? I'm thinking, like, I almost killed myself physically, like literally almost killed myself. How can this conversation be more stressful, right? Like,
you can't do worse to me than I've already done to
but honestly, to some degree, that's kind of been like, I don't know if it's been healthy, but it's like a protection mechanism. So when I'm feeling tremendous pressure out other parts of my life, I seem to go absolutely off the deep end in terms of how I want to just, like you say, almost try to take myself out.
But redlining in the gym, or move the ball down, but redlining as a parent, what does that mean? I mean, it's a metaphor. It doesn't translate through, but
I think for me, if I think to your, I maybe didn't answer it, but I think that physical release allows me to like have an outlet, like let it go, so that I can calm down in other situations.
I come from a very corporate business background, and you can get very competitive in that realm as well. I want this promotion, I want this title, I want to manage this big a team, this much revenue in a business, and I think my pursuit of athletics and my pursuit from a career standpoint have both balanced one another out. It's not like I'm trying to overachieve in one because I'm underachieving in another. I think they both contribute to me being better in the two.
They're complementary.
100%.
What about you?
I'm at the point where I'm not so much competitive, but I'm driven by fear, because I'm 60 now. I still want to be able to, we kind of talked about this before, but I still want to be able, if I had to climb a fence or push a car or dig a car out of a ditch, or, because I see lots of guys that have gone to seed, and, honestly, if there was some kind of emergency, they wouldn't be able to function. So that's, the thing that used to drive me was that competitive. I want to be the best. I want to win.
I think there is an element of fear in all of this. As we get older, I don't want to be...
That's a topic we're not allowed to talk about.
That was going to be
the mortality part. There's no
I just said getting older.
There's no fucking mortality discussions.
Not kicking it.
No, I just want to be ready for the zombie apocalypse.
Did I tell you that you're the Hector 60-year-old with that Pabst Blue Ribbon too?
Thanks. I got it with a case of beer.
How old is that hat?
I don't know, 5 years old maybe.
Do you realize that's what all the kids are up to now, eh?
Really?
This is the same hat Relic wore.
I know. It is, right?
It's like he's Relic from the Beachcombers, the salty. I don't know if that's a compliment, but I mean it.
I take it as a compliment.
His attire looks like it too. The logs, eh?
Wow.
But the constant kind of desire to get better. Do you find sometimes you ask yourself, is I don't know, because I sometimes you have outside people saying turn it off
Constantly,
right? So I sometimes wonder to myself, am I doing this as some sort of coping mechanism to not deal with something else? And I framed it in a way that, okay, well, I'm getting better. Because I've had someone say, well, can you not just sleep in?
No.
And I said my answer to that was I get it, and I can relax, I can enjoy that, but I said I have this sense of, maybe it's a mortality thing, I don't know, but I feel like I've had it my whole life. I feel like every second I have to lay something down because I just want to get as much out of this time around as possible. So I don't know where
you're wired, man.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing or what.
Well,
there are downsides
within reason. I mean, if it's to the exclusion of all else, then that can become unhealthy.
And others, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Well, you need to make choices, right? And every choice has a consequence to it. And sometimes I've pushed too hard in my career. Sometimes I've pushed too hard in athletic pursuits, and something has to give when you do that.
Yeah.
I used to travel every week and for work. Stuff gives in that. Yeah. Going to a bike race or wanting to do whatever we do from a sports standpoint, it's all choice. And as long as you surround yourself with people that support those choices and you allow them to have their choices,
yeah,
I think everything works out pretty well. And I've also found that, in my career now, I'm more comfortable with where I am, and that's allowing me to kind of transition some of my pursuits from an athletic standpoint to go after those a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because you can't do Ironmans and be a CEO.
Yeah.
Maybe you can. I see the guy running Lululemon right now is doing that.
Yeah, nothing else going on in your life.
It's such a time commitment. And I think that's the biggest thing is I do need to wake up at a certain time every day to get all the things done in the day that I want to get done. I'm in my home gym by 6 a.m.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
But you talk about a home gym. Do you have a home gym?
Yep.
I'm guessing that the reason you chose this building is because of the fitness facility?
No, but I mean, it is.
Or part of it
I
played
use it
into
every day, yeah.
So we've built our lives around. I have a gym as well. Thanks to my wife, really, who's a trainer and nutritionist. But we have that in our home, and we had it in we've lived in 2 different houses now. We made sure that each home had that in it. There was it's non-negotiable that we have a fitness facility in our home, and especially since we have young children, and you go to the gym, it's an hour and a half, but I can go. They drive to the gym, leave the house, and go to the gym. An hour and a half, but I can go with my kids into my gym. They get to see my wife and I training together, and they see that that's a natural part of our day. And we've all at this table have built this into our lives. At a minimum, if I don't get a chance to get on my bicycle or whatever, I've already been to the gym today. I'm not going to get out on my bike today, and I'm okay with that.
But do you raise something that's quite a neat nuance? Is so just go back to the kids and the age, but they've seen you and Barb in the gym since they were born, right?
Yeah.
So
well, they've been crawling on the ground in the gym. So they wear safety, but they.
But now I think you said in the lead up to this that they've kind of picked up some of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, they're in. We have one of the rules. My wife and it's more my rule. I don't think my wife puts the TV on as much as I do. We have a TV in the gym, and the kids are allowed to watch as long as they're moving. So we have a silk. My daughter does aerial silks. She'll be playing on that, or my son. He just follows me around. I don't really tell him what he needs to do, but he often will steal my weights and whatnot. But he'll pick up.
And how old is he?
He's 6. So he'll pick up weights and start moving around the gym. But one of the things. That I think you talked about becoming comfortable at work and comfortable in athletic performance, that sort of thing that comes with age. But I realized as we were sitting here talking, when I was younger, I wrongfully, and I think a lot of young guys do this, and if any are listening, you don't need to compare yourselves to others. But I also had a component of like imposter syndrome. And I don't know if our height thing comes into it, where you know, like you keep bringing up my achievements, which I'm proud of the things I've done, but I didn't realize till after I had almost left skydiving, or after kind of the whatever bit of fighting I did. And again, I still feel imposter syndrome. I spent a large part of my life fighting, but I'm thinking about the guys at the martial arts school right now at Shears Martial Arts, listening to this thing. What are you talking about, man? I'm the fighter. I have imposter syndrome about that. I did spend a lot of time doing it. I did compete a fair bit. There's guys that have competed way more. Yeah. But so somehow I'm still pushing through. It's like, well, I'm not doing that, but I'm still having to do something to prove to myself that I'm worthy of A, B, or C. I don't even know what it is. And
but you're a role model to people too. The people there, the kids in your home gym. Because you're showing them commitment and structure and balance and planning a bit as well, because you need to plan your days out in order to get to this in.
And dedicating some of your life to healthy lifestyle.
Well, that's made things better in my business life and hopefully in my family life. The judges of that'll be my family, and my business partners. But I don't know. I guess I kind of segued out of the kids. So far, so good. But I segued out of the because honestly,
just I'm interrupting on a point. By all means. You don't have to get into the details. But for those that don't know, I mean, you've got all of you. But in your case, you run entrepreneurial businesses that you and your family have built. So, yeah, you like to Mike's point. All the stuff that we've all done athletically, I think it's fair to say we've done a reasonable job to also add in like business or other responsibilities. So it's not like, and I'm not knocking people that just focus on sports for a living, but in our case, what I think is interesting are people like you guys, where you've juggled and contributed in society with, health and medicine and all these different things, but it's still at the same time found a way to plan in all this pursuit. Like that's where I think a lot of people trip up. They either I just want to do sports and then I do nothing else, right? I just want to be an influencer, maybe is the modern version of it, and nothing else, right? Or I just do business and I sit on the couch and I let myself go. But somehow, you've managed all this.
Well, so when we were talking about whether this is an addiction or not, and an argument for all four of us that in our case it's not an addiction, and I use that in the negative term, is that hopefully we've balanced our lives and our businesses around it. We've made our pursuit of athleticism work with our jobs, where we go, and the responsibilities, as far as earning a living, and then our families as well. If you can balance those things, and it remains to be seen, are we balancing them? Have we balanced them? Have we balanced them in the past? I think the place we're in now, this time intersect space that we're sitting at right now, the answer is yes to the four of us. I don't want to speak for anyone. Probably another podcast will get into, has that always been the case? Which I think would be
I think we could foreshadow the answer on that. But maybe the term that we consider introducing is, because like I said, I get really testy on the balance, because it's just how my mind thinks of, it's all kind of homeostasis this, whereas I know at least for me, when I pursue athletics, it's not in the middle, it's red line. I think like the term is blend. Like I just, like we've blended the pursuit of athletics with these other things. And that is the conversation for the future about whether I personally done a good job. I haven't done a good job blending it, but it's not an and or. It's a blend because you're weaving it into the 24-hour day. Mm-hmm. So this is a neat segue in my mind is what's the, pick you again, defer to the experience here. What's the, in your mind, like the craziest accommodation you've had to make to squeeze in some form of athleticism? You talked a little bit about this one wedding thing just recently, 15 minutes in and out, but like anything.
Over time, like my daughter's, how old is she now? 30. William's 29. Jake is 26.
Hope you get this.
You're gonna
right.
get for the blood.
So when they were young, I would go to Ironworks at 10 at night. That's how I, and I could do that because I could work out, get up the next morning, no problem. Quite often places I worked at would have a gym, work out at lunchtime, work out at 10. But as I've gotten older, I got to be in bed by 9, and my kids are older and they like going to the gym. Like when I was younger, I had them down in the basement working out. I was a bit of a Nazi. That was probably the wrong approach. Yeah. But they all still work out and they've all done okay in sports. They've done pretty good. But now I'm old and used up, so I manage it by I work out at lunch at work, and then.
What is that when you get in?
Yeah, and then sometimes after work, the whole family will go to. There's a gym on Broadway, which is about a block away.
Cool.
And we'll go there, and either all of us or most of us will go. But that's how I've tried to blend it or balance it over the years.
That's cool.
Yeah, because when your kids are young, you got to get them up, get them fed, get them to school. You go work, then you come back, and then it's whatever activities they have. And the thing I discovered is the older they, because I thought the older they got, the less busy it would be. But when they went from preschool to grade school, it got busier.
Yeah.
And then when it got to high school, it got even fucking crazier. And then they all went on to post-secondary stuff, sports, and got even busier.
Yeah.
Plus I started helping out, which made things busier. But we blend things differently depending on how old our family is.
Good thing Pat at Ironworks is open till 11.
Yeah, that was a blessing.
And it's funny, but there's when you look at places to train or whatever the sport or athletics is, but you can see there's a group of people that roll in at different times in the day. Mm-hmm. Like you're an early morning.
Oh yeah. Just that's when I'm at my best, and I lose it throughout the day. So trying to work out later in the day, I've got my energy levels are low, my cognitive,
Same.
is low, and I know that if I don't do it in the morning, it's not going to work. There's a couple things I've done to drive this blend. One is, coaching my boys in hockey. So I've got to spend time with them, but I'm also on the ice and, teaching them how to use edges, that type of thing. And then the other piece lately is my 4-year-old daughter, trying to get a workout in on the weekend type of thing. I'll put her in a bike trailer, drag her around for 20, 30K around the city.
Yeah, that's cool.
She must love that.
Oh, she does. And we pack snacks and we have a picnic, and, I may not hit zone 5 heart rates, but it's still good. And it's quality time with them, and it shows them an active lifestyle.
What is she? And what is she? Yeah, she's going to grow up thinking this is normal.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That's so cool, eh?
But that would be an adventure bombing around the city in that.
No kidding,
in that buggy.
Yeah, hit a few different parks, and get her doing chin-ups in one park, and it's fun.
For as long as I've known you, you've always kind of blended it that way, with the work and how did you? But just before we go to some of your stuff, but the one because we were in different parts of the world when I was overseas, you were here. I'm curious, how tough was it to keep up the pursuit of athletics during the Red Bull years? Because now you're talking about
really tough, because
right? Long nights, party,
you'd
right?
work all
Drinking.
day, and then you're taking clients out at night.
Right,
you're closing down bars, and I would try and limit my alcohol consumption.
It's a real thing like that, yeah, right?
And not too many Red Bulls after 9 at night to to disrupt my sleep, but I'd still try and get up in the morning and at least do something before the next day started.
You maintained the habit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like how unhealthy do you think you got during that period with just that lifestyle? I'm not attributing to Red Bull. I'm just saying that's a tough lifestyle. I mean, I've known guys that were reps for booze companies, and that's got to be a tough gig.
So I went from there to Muscle Milk, which is sport nutrition, and then I traveled across Canada and talking to gym owners and introducing our product to them, type of thing. So it was a complete change in lifestyle for me, but I also realized how important sleep was to me and how I needed to prioritize that, because without a certain amount of sleep, I just couldn't function anywhere near what I thought my potential was. And I was a grumpy ass most of the time too because of no sleep.
Yeah. After training, the most important thing is sleep. You could eat at 7-Eleven and do okay as long as you get your 8 or 10 or 12 hours
taquitos.
Yeah, I mean, it's just somewhat similar. I mean, you've built a successful local business.
OGAs would be similar to that.
Yeah. So now how have you blended all this?
That was, I don't know how we did it.
And for those that don't know, O'Shea's is Irish pub.
Yeah, in Saskatoon. We've been around 22 years, and I was 27 years old.
Nice deck,
Thank you. Yeah, a rooftop patio, and we. Thanks for the plug. Anyway, when I think back on it, like, I'll maybe spare the instructor's name, but my really good friend and instructor that taught the classes at the martial arts school I was at was my drinking buddy too, and we'd go train hard all day. I worked evenings. I'd pop in the pub to meet with my business partners in the morning, and then I'd go. I'd ride my bike to work from Lakeview downtown about 7K, but then I'd go to Shears Martial Arts to do 11 a.m. till 1 p.m. in jiu-jitsu and kickboxing, and then I'd either work, or if I wasn't working, from 7 to 3 in the morning, and often 3 in the morning was when we got done, but we drink until 5 in the morning. I still did that, whether I worked or if I wasn't working, I'd start drinking at 7 p.m. and he was with me. He had to teach the classes at 11 or noon, depending. And then the 11 o'clock period was just a one-on-one with me and him, and I don't know how I did it, but we did it. I got the workouts were there, and lots of activity. I was training harder then than I do now, but my sleep was a mess, and somehow I just did it. I don't know how we did it.
How old were you?
I was probably around 20, around 30.
Yeah, around 30.
But yeah, we rolled out of some of those places when the sun was out, and then a few hours later we were training.
But do you know what the crazy part is? I mean, you think back and you say you did it, but imagine if you didn't pursue athletics to that level during that period, where we would be physically. My lifestyle when I was in the corporate side and I was traveling around the world. I mean, the one trip I got back, I was in emergency coming out of Brazil, apparently I had a heart attack or something, because I was traveling, high protein, high booze, not enough sleep, working as hard as I could, good or bad, and playing rugby and heavier and all that, right? I think I was 33, and I bet you I had the endocrinology and internal of 63.
Yeah, you're burning the candle at both ends.
Something had to give, right? And so I think to myself, well, at least I was active then, because otherwise, and I've seen people in those spaces when they weren't, and they don't make it. So to some degree, I'm much more blended and healthier now than I was when 20 years ago, weirdly. And I just sometimes wonder if I didn't do that then, I might not even be around.
Right. Yeah, I mean, in my case, I don't know what my health... you're putting your body under so much stress with the drinking and eating in the pub and whatever else was going on, or whatever you decided to eat at 5 in the morning before you went to bed. And then you put your body under stress with all the working out on top of it. I was overtraining and I was treating myself like crap. But I don't know if youth makes up for a lot of mistakes. Yeah, but I can even come close to doing that now.
That's why soldiers are 18 years old, because they can take the sleep deprivation, the abuse, because you have that ability to recover. And as you get older, it gets a little tougher.
But I think
it sure does.
But it's funny. I just read that Napoleon history again, and he was aware of that. So, the guys that had put in the time, they had specific roles, and then the ones that were younger coming in, the young guard and the middle guard, they were the ones that could go and hump the miles and do the aggressive, tactical moves, where these other guys are a bit more strategic and come and finish. So getting on a bit of the age thing, so in the concept of old guard athletics loosely connected to that Napoleon structure, he had that pipeline where it's like, okay, the old guard guys eventually are going to die off or something. And so then with the middle guard, young guard, and the same thing, that you couldn't just jump, no matter how talented were you, had to put in the time. That's why you can't have someone that's way more gifted than we are athletically in the 20s be where we're at, because they haven't stacked 3 decades of this yet. When they do, then that's a different thing. But that
Mike Tyson and Jake Paul.
Yeah.
No, are we comparing who won the fight versus who's put the time in? It's not take away credit from Jake Paul, but come on, man.
Who won the fight is...
Yeah, but maybe it's a funny example, but...
Yeah, but so you have that. So you have exactly that point. What I would say, just to bring back to our situation, though, is as much as I'm a huge fan of Mike Tyson and as a person, he's the furthest thing from an OGA possible. Because when he was in his 20s, he was a machine. Then he chose to let himself go in life for 2+ decades. And so then he got himself back in good shape for a 58-year-old that put himself through what he did. So that's the credit part to him. But he's not the guy that was.
It wasn't a lifetime.
It wasn't a lifetime, right? And so it's not to, again. That's where I want to be super sensitive to not come across as critical of those other people and profiles. I just think what makes us a little bit statistically unique is we've just stacked decades after decades. And so that's why I think our perspective is a little unique. And then when you get these young guys or ladies, we need some ladies around here. Mike, you got to help us out and connect with some people. But, I've said this to my 2 sons, I think, that might be on this path. I'm super impressed with where they are. Way more advanced at that stage of, let's say, young guard. But if I'm still alive, which I intend to be in, would be 30, 25 years or something, when they've stacked another 2.5 or 20 years on top, then we'll talk, right? And
we'll say, Dad, all that shit you were telling us was right.
Yeah.
Well,
we're all parents. We all are around younger athletes. I've noticed a big change in, and maybe this is due to social media or something else going on right now, this instant gratification.
Yeah,
and people don't want to put in the time. They're looking for either the supplement or the whatever to get them to where they want to be quicker. And I keep telling my boys that there's no replacement for hard work.
Totally.
And I don't look like this now, whatever this is, because of supplements and everything else, right?
No.
They're all contributors, but it's consistent long-term pursuit of athletics.
We live in McDonald's society. I want it now. I don't want to have to wait. I don't want to have to do anything to get it, and it has to be exactly the way I want it. And guys think, I'll just jump in the gym and I'll end up looking like Arnold, which doesn't happen.
Yeah, end up looking like Jay. But it's crazy because they see. I mean, you're a bit of a like you said, role model at Ironworks. You roll in there and everyone's like, oh, look at that guy, he's all jacked up, and but they don't understand. They don't understand how much toil you've gone through to get here. Yeah. And then I'm torn on the whole internet thing because in some way, I mean, look at what we're doing here. We're sharing stories. I mean, this is what I find the funniest thing is we're still doing it like we were 30, 40 years ago. We're not using the internet for information. We're talking through experience. But the internet today for young people is amazing because they have so much information at their fingertips if they want to use it properly. Yep. But somehow it gets blended with this influencer instant gratification. So yet you have more knowledge, but you're what's the resilience or persistence or deferred gratification metric is lower.
Yeah.
There's no substance. Anything worth having takes time and hard work. It's as simple as that.
I know every generation says, I'm worried about the generation before, and our parents did that with us now. So there's 3 qualities the 4 of us have sitting around this table that will make our children, you guys are your adult children, you have a younger child, that make our younger children they'll have superpowers. There's 3 superpowers. One of them is doing what we're doing right now, is be able to look people in the eye and have a conversation, because that's being lost. The second thing is what you just talked about, is this deferred gratification, like work towards something and not have the reward immediately. And the third one might be controversial, but is not to have a sick body for lack of caring about what goes into it and what it's able to do. Yeah. I think those 3 things. So what are we saying? Are we going to be able to have a conversation? We're going to be able to work towards a goal, and we're going to care enough our body not to treat it poorly and make sure it moves regularly and stuff like that. I think those are things that the next generation, if they have, will be extraordinarily unique, more so than wherever you think we sit in the uniqueness of athletes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean, I totally agree. I guess, what is your expectation that young generation is going to embrace it, or like I
because you can't push your kids now.
Well, this is I really struggle with how to communicate, and so it's kind of funny. It's like, okay,
just be an example for them.
Yeah, this is it. This is exactly it. This is what you just do what you do, and then you stop trying to send messages. You just do it.
Yeah,
it's the best you can do, I think.
Yes,
and always be open to including them, right?
And getting feedback.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to be naive to think that I think every generation's worried about the one. They're going to be fine, like we were, and our parents were worried about us, and their parents were worried about. They're going to be fine, but their adult world is going to look very different than ours.
But you know what? I am an optimist, and I'm an optimist with technology and all that. I agree, but this generation that's coming up, so our kids collectively, they're going to live with the closest thing, if not for real, like on scale, but they're going to live with this idea of like cyborg elements.
Yeah.
Well, so there's that part, but you're also, I'm talking physically, like the idea that there's already talks about, so Mike Nederhoff on a tissue basis looks like this, but basically I can replicate everything on the inside now with robotics, right? And so the question becomes, like, I sometimes wonder if we are like this, we're just hanging on to a vessel, like in the history. I think I heard this in a podcast saying that actually when you step way back, we exist as human beings, this is the tail end of how we will look. The next group will actually have an embedded...
enhancements, yeah.
Yeah, well, it'll be a blended thing. And so I value more than anything that what we're doing today, but to some degree, when someone's like, okay, I broke my femur, it's like an oil change. I just go and get a new femur, and I go back to doing.
That's what my hips are.
Yeah, no, right. I mean, you've got a kind of semi-modern version of that.
Yeah.
So
I think not only that is, but not only. I mean, this could be a whole topic for spend an hour on it, but I think like already peptides, those weren't something we talked about as performance enhancing when we were young. I think we all knew steroids and that sort of thing were around, and then it came out some of the supplements that worked really well. Creatine, I remember when it came on. I think we all remember when creatine came on, and then steroids were always there, and they're easier to get than ever. And then now there's going to be these mechanical enhancements, and not only that, but I mean, I showed you guys if we're living in a digital world where we view each other, when I mean view each other's bodies online, I was showing you the other day, you can create AI photographs of yourself in situations and stuff like that. So we're going to get into this, we've put in the work, and we can get into who's used performance enhancing in the past or not, but we put in the work, and some of these things are going to change the perception of these influences that our kids look at and say, I want to be like that guy, and that guy might not be that in real life, or he might be that because of, we're going to talk about maybe a robotic or enhancement. Those are all going to come, and maybe we'll be dinosaurs, man. Maybe our kids will be listening to this and say, "Oh, no, Dad didn't have the whatever titanium legs or whatever it was." But
I mean, I wondered if we'll be like the horse and buggy generation. People look back and go, "These guys actually did that to themselves to kind of go faster, stronger," and just also kind of mindful of the time here, but. One of the future discussions we need to talk about is if you guys picked up on the fact that there's a bunch of billionaires that have put the money into the all-drug Olympics.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
fascinated. I think
right?
That's the greatest
Have you heard
thing
about this?
ever.
No. This is the real deal. Like, so the joke was on
So
Saturday.
the best doctor wins.
But it's all, no, it's so the Saturday Night Live skit we're all familiar with. The all drug and he pulls
Belushi pulls his arms off.
Blood's going everywhere. So there's these guys, Peter Thiel from Silicon Valley, and these guys are like, okay. Everyone in professional sports is doing this, but it's all cloak and dagger. Yeah. So why don't we do it the opposite and say, let's see what's possible, and let's get these things separated out for like purpose, and then at the same time, then we'll put some structure. And the way I've heard it is they think of it like F1. So F1, there's certain rules, like in how far you can push the performance of a car. So everyone can fiddle within, but it's like, okay, let's blow the lid off up to this point. So they say, well, for human performance, let's set some like transparent structure that's attached to money. We'll build the best protocols, the best doctors, and we will open source all the medical results of all the athletes in real time.
And they do have medical parameters. Like doctors have to. You can't kill an athlete.
No, it's like an F1. You can't go past whatever an octane fuel or whatever these rules are, right? And so this has picked up a lot of steam. I forgot, it's not called all drug. I made it up.
It's
what's it called? There's a term for it. It's they have an actual website and Jamie. Oh no, we don't have Jamie.
We need a Jamie.
The enhanced games, is that something right?
I don't know. Is it? Yeah, it's not far off.
Something like that. Yeah.
It's not far off. But anyway, yeah, that's a full on conversation because I'm excited too because I think this, in terms of athletics. I've always argued this with some of my friends that were high up in organized, like Canada level stuff. And I'm like, come on, let's not call it amateur sports. This is all bullshit. It's if you get paid, you should have people pursue it to the maximum on a commercial value. So then when kids come up to decide, they say, look, do I want to make this a career and get paid? Then I go this route, and it's open. Then I'm likely into performance enhancing. Everything goes with it. Amateur sports then could be truly us kind of guys in a way where you're bumbling and stumbling along without, the full protocol and everything else.
Yeah.
Because now, there's no amateur sports anymore, right? You even get the guys paid in university for college sponsorships, right? So anyway, I think that's a cool one because that gets into this point of what will enhanced athletes look like.
That's going to evolve as everything else does, yeah.
You want to put a person, Oscar Pistorius was some version of that until he went a little nutty.
Yeah.
But he didn't, it was somewhat an intruder, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Him and OG.
Yeah, no kidding. That's funny. Well, then two athletes, right?
Yep.
And that anger management is probably a topic for another day. As it relates to athletes.
I think we've had a great initial discussion.
Right. I agree.
So just to kind of wrap it up, I think first one in the can, second one will aim to, underpinning all this. There was just this one example where I did my kind of bodybuilding excursion. I've got a kind of documented film around it, which I think is kind of neat. Not so much because I'm anything special, but it just underpins like the commitment I personally gave to that one particular campaign. So the next one we'll do is we'll try to get you guys to watch that film kind of before it's globally premiered, and then we'll have the director Ryan Bruce, who's actually a middle guard as well, and then he'll be around in Saskatoon, and we might even have like a special guest phone in for that who's also involved in that film as well.
Awesome.
And what we didn't say is, I don't know if people can notice it if they're watching it by the video or listening to it, but we are in Four Seasons territory here, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. So we are, I guess, athletic pursuit has gone through all 4 seasons every year, and that's something to be discussed as well.
Oh yeah.
And that's why the Pabst Blue Rhythm toque is out. So
There's no shitty weather, just shitty clothing.
That's right.
We're able to operate in all conditions, plus 40, minus 40. Not many people can do that.
Yeah.
That's true. All right. Well, thanks,
Great
guys.
stuff.
First
Yeah, thank
one, Ken. Look forward
Great
to the second
stuff.
one. Thanks for listening.
Boom.
That's it. Not bad. Oh, did it record it? No. Let's see.